Hello and good morning or good afternoon to our friends from the East Coast. We have Ajay Singh here from SqlDBM. We have Keith Belanger from Eon Collective and Heather R also from Eon Collective. We're excited to get started. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to join. And so a question I have for you guys today, we're all working in data, right? What would you be doing right now if you were not working in data? Anybody can start.
Keith,
Go ahead, Heather. No, you go ahead.
Okay. I would be working with dolphins. I had this dream to work with dolphins and help like people that had mobility issues doing some therapy on it, but I ended up in data.
I love that. And I have a question for you later, actually, because I'm into dolphins too. I actually just saw an article yesterday that said that the Navy is now employing dolphins to protect nuclear, something nuclear under the sea. So that's
I think I read that article with the sonar detection.
Yeah. But ask Heather if she'll go swimming in the ocean.
I will not. That's another reason I'm not working with dolphins.
I won't ask then.
If I was doing something different than data, it'd probably be something travel related. I like to travel. And so it'd probably somewhat be travel related. I did for a while own on the side a travel agency.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it would definitely be something that would be travel related.
I love that. And where's your favorite place that you've traveled?
Thus far, Costa Rica, but I have yet to go over to Europe. I was supposed to have 3 trips over to Europe over COVID. Now all 3 got canceled. So I was supposed to go to Greece. I was supposed to go on a river cruise in Budapest, and I was supposed to go to Italy. But
me and you both.
Those are yeah.
Both. I'm finally going for the first time for Big Data London in
Nice.
Less than a month now. So I'm right there with you. All my trips
Nice.
got canceled. What about you, Ajay?
If I was not in data, I would be doing some research and also helping some other people with disabilities.
I love that.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Maybe you could research Heather's dolphin therapy. I love that. I actually didn't even think of an answer for mine. I would probably, you know what? I think I would love to be a kitchen designer specifically. No other rooms, just kitchen.
Wow.
That would be a fun little dream of mine. Okay, so it's 9:03. We have tons of participants already. So
Great.
I say we go ahead and get started. What do you guys think?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it.
Great. Go ahead, Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather R. I'm from Eon Collective. I've been in the data modeling space and the data governance space for about 13 years now. I currently am working with clients on instantiating data governance programs. But prior to that, I did both data modeling for the OLTP and data warehousing areas.
Great.
Keith?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Keith Belanger. I lead the data practice at Eon Collective. I have been in the data management space for about 27 years. I did start my career as a data modeler. I was introduced to data modeling before I learned to do anything else in data. I think it was probably about a year after that before I even learned how to write SQL. So, I started in the OLTP space and eventually moved over to the data warehousing when the company I was at says, hey, there's this data warehousing stuff, you want to learn about it? And that was the kind of turning point in my career in terms of going in the data warehousing space. I have played many roles. Like I said, I started as a data modeler, eventually became an ETL developer, DBA, BI administrator, and then in the last few years, kind of more of a lead data architect and have led multiple data modernization and data warehouse implementations. So it's been a very wide variety of practices in the data space. So, but with that, I'm going to share my screen and get into some of this stuff. If you guys are all good with that, is that good?
Let's do it.
Actually, all right. So make sure you guys can see. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yep, all good.
All right. So just I want to take a minute. Just as Heather and I both said, we are with Eon Collective, and just a kind of brief who we are. Eon Collective is a managed data services provider. So we work with clients and organizations on their data monetization effort, data governance implementations, and data warehousing, data strategy, some accelerated services. So a lot of kind of prototypes or projects and things we build to help, either integrate between solutions in the data space and technologies. And we kind of have what we follow the adept framework. We are a partner. We have been a partner with SqlDBM for probably a couple years now. We've helped organizations with implementing SqlDBM, and we also use SqlDBM ourselves, even within Eon Collective, for either pre-sales work we do or work that we're working on in doing trial and error. So we've used the solution both internally and with clients. So we're happy to be able to show you guys SqlDBM and some of its new features. So I'm going to get out of this screen. And before we get into the data governance aspects, I thought it would be good to share. I don't know how many people are on who are familiar with SqlDBM, have used it. So I thought it would be best to kind of first do a quick, I call it set the stage in terms of, a little bit about SqlDBM, and then we'll kind of migrate into the data governance stuff. So here we've created, we're in the SqlDBM dashboard, and we've created a project here, and we're going to kind of simulate a kind of a working data practice and maybe our life cycle and how things would go. And we started with, in this case, you can see the snowflake symbol. We've elected that our backend database is going to be Snowflake. And in this, and I'm actually using it, those of you familiar with the TPCH sample data that comes out of Snowflake, and we're kind of using that. And we've created ourselves, kind of mimicked a kind of an agile might be doing its delivery. So what we've created here, we've got Squad A and Squad B. And one of the good things about SqlDBM is that ability to have multiple squads or multiple modelers working at the same time in parallel and not really hurting each other and stepping on each other's toes. So in this case, we might have Squad A, working on some aspects of the delivery, and Squad B working on others. So it could be if you're in say a data mesh type of scenario, or you're doing a lot of self-service BI, you could have, different people in different squads doing work. So in this case, we're going to go into Squad A, and just to kind of give a little bit of dive into here and just kind of walking through, we're using, in this case, I'm doing a Data Vault 2.0 overall solution, and just kind of walking through that. So what we start with here is the PSA, which is the persistent staging area coming from our source. And one thing I want to kind of show here is, a lot of data warehousing sources, when you're landing them in, you don't have referential integrity. You aren't able to reverse engineer those relationships. Here we're leveraging virtual relationships so that we can see and understand the relationships that have been established between these structures. And this won't create any types of constraints or anything, but it gives us the ability to understand that. Right now, I'm kind of showing diagrams, so we can have a variety of diagrams to allow us to see the different aspects of the model from different perspectives that are important for people to understand. So initially, I have right now a diagram per schema. So we have the persistent staging area. That data then goes into the raw vault. So we have kind of a raw vault perspective of that. And you can see I've changed the colors for our hubs, links, satellites, for those who are familiar with that. Eventually, things going into a business vault. So we have our structures around the business vault, and then eventually in the information mart. So right now we've only developed one fact table, and we'll say Squad B is working on the rest of it at the moment. So the benefit of the diagrams, like I said, it really gives us a way of seeing a variety of perspectives of, even though we're looking at the database, we can see tons of tables and tons of views, but allows us to give us those perspectives that we need. Other aspects of the diagrams we can do what I call subject areas. So for example, we might want to see all of the tables that are associated to a customer, like this is one relationship away, or maybe with orders. So again, all the same tables, it's just a different way of allowing people to see maybe the structures that they need. And if you're working on projects or initiatives that maybe you have different structures for different, maybe it's for lines of business, right? Or maybe you have geographical things that are different about your model. Maybe you have subtype tables that, again, this is all a great way of organizing your structures so that it can be navigated and seen. A couple of other things I want to kind of just quickly show is that, I have some views that do some work, and we can actually see the lineage of those views and what's going on. And this is some great stuff if you really want to see where data is coming from and how it's maneuvering through your structures within the database. We can also see our different revisions as we're making changes. We can see the revisions that are going on and compare those revisions. And the best part right now is I'm doing all of this, whatever I would do in my branch, I might be doing for a certain sprint or something like that, and then being able to then eventually merge when I'm ready to the main branch. I'm not going to do that at the moment, but just to kind of show you up at the top, we can go, and I haven't made any changes, so there's nothing to do. But this is really where you can have those multiple, like I said, multiple, not only just multiple teams, but also multiple revisions and releases that you can do. So I'm going to just also quickly jump out. I just want to show a couple more technical things that'll kind of lead us into the governance. So as I was saying, we can have multiple squads that are going down. And so I may have made changes as squad A and released them to that main branch. In squad B, when they go in, it's going to say, hey, there's some changes that have been in the main branch. Do you want to bring them down? So those of you who might be familiar with source code management, it's kind of the same thing, except now you can have multiple projects in different teams, working on different use cases and deliverables, but having one coherent model that's being managed. So I'm going to go now into the main branch and just kind of show a couple of things that I think are really great features. Again, if you have multiple teams, what's great is you can have all of your environments. So in this case for Snowflake, I could have a development, I can have a QA and a production environment, and being able to see what's going on. And so here's an example. I did a merge from squad A into my main branch, and I can look at my development and I can see that squad A has added a whole bunch of new structures that currently aren't in development. So again, to me, kind of for those of you who aren't familiar with SqlDBM, I've gone through a whole heck of a lot of stuff that could really deep dive, but I wanted to kind of set the context and set the understanding of the tool for those of you who might be new to it. With that, I'm going to now go into, we just talked about a lot of technical things, and one thing that is great, is we're capturing a lot of metadata and a lot of information. And up to this point, we've mostly been focusing on the technical side, but now, with the introduction of that SqlDBM is now integrating data governance solutions into the tool, we're going to dive into that. And, Heather, I would love to get your take on, what you think about data governance features being brought into SqlDBM.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. So I think this is exciting. If you think about data modeling and data design, it's really, your data is at the heart of your design. So this is allowing, SqlDBM is allowing their customers to add custom metadata for data governance at the point where you would collaborate with your technical stewards or your business stewards, and it allows for flexibility. So I think it's a nice bonus, and it naturally will help support the design process while getting data governance in sooner in the cases where it's not.
Yeah, and I think, you and I have been collaborating on this stuff for many years, and oftentimes, because we're still in the design phase and this hasn't been released or deployed yet, we're capturing a lot of this stuff in, Excel spreadsheets, side documentation, notebooks, because, we haven't really had a place to put it. Nothing has been released yet, right?
Right.
So here we have the documentation, and I think, Heather, if you want to kind of jump into some of this stuff and talk about what we got going on here.
Right. So above and beyond the technical metadata that's present there, we've also added some custom data governance fields. So you have the logical physical name and you have your definitions, but we've also, if you could go ahead and select them all and then kind of navigate through. We've also added some custom fields for our work process. Data classification, JIRA issues, frequency, SLA, and transformation logic. For our process, these were important for us to track. The frequency, the SLA, the data classification, and in that we would be doing, is this private, public or confidential data, transformation logic. So as we're moving into the MART, we can say, is it a one-to-one relationship, or add any logic that is needed. As we're seeing this, Keith, I did realize from a data governance perspective, I want to add another column. So would you help me add a column right now?
Sure, go ahead.
Great.
What would
Could
you
you
like?
add a column called data owner? I'd like it to be a drop down too, Keith.
Okay, now we're gonna test my typing skills. And you said you want it to be a drop down? Okay,
Yeah.
and what do you want?
Let's do sales, finance, HR, customer, something like that.
So why are you adding this particular column, this type of field?
So in my work processes, we're at a point in the data governance program where we want to start adding accountability to the tables. If there's any questions about the data, it will give you a person to contact. I don't want to add individual names at this moment because of natural attrition and promotions and stuff. So if I keep it at a high level, when we get into a later part of this demo, there's other places where we can document and add more information about who to contact and things like that. So giving it this will allow for flexibility and growth, and it doesn't have a lot of changes down the road.
Right. And as you can see, once you created it, it was instantly available, and we were able to start adding this to the metadata for this. And those people who may or may not be familiar with non-invasive data governance, what I'm liking about all of this is that we're doing it. My mom used to always say when I was growing up, pick up as you go, so you don't have a big mess at the end of the week when I was growing up. And I think this is kind of in that same thing. It's kind of data governance as you go. As we're interacting and as we're collaborating, we're able to add these business contexts that would be important to them. Now, Heather, a question for you. We're seeing these. Do you think these columns should come out of the box, or you like that they're you can add them as you need? And why you answer which way you would?
Thanks. Yeah, I actually like that it's not out of the box and it's not forced. That way, I think we should meet each company where they are in their data governance journey, and not all fields are needed by all clients at this moment. It allows them to customize it, grow as they're ready to add new columns, track new metadata. So I wouldn't force certain fields on it at this moment. I think right now this allows your users to start working with what they need, figuring it out, and have the flexibility to change before it's forced on them.
Gotcha. Now, some other things that we have in the governance space, and I'm going to go to a different table because we can see the different perspective in here, and we can see that we also have these flags and tags, right? So we have custom columns, flags, and tags, right?
Oh my.
And give me your breakdown in terms of the role and how would you use these different, especially what's the difference between flags and tags?
Sure, yeah. So let's start with tags. And since we're using Snowflake, we have the ability to add tags in there. So this is data that will carry on through the implementation. For flags, how you and I have been working is to use this as like a handover process. So we can mark it, is it data governance? Is it ready for review? So it allows us to improve communication when we can't constantly talk and know what we need to do. And I can pick it up from where you left it off. You can see my comments or my flags and review what needs to be done. So it's been nice.
Yeah, and those are the flags are something that you and I use it, and it doesn't mean like every organization have to use the flags that way, but from our perspective it was especially like, for example, in the search documentation here. I mean, I can we can do a needs governance, and then you can see here, the only one we've flagged with that is this customer table, right? So we know that I can quickly go to something, when I had done the model and I said, hey, it still needs governance, a quick way to do it. To kind of dive even a little bit deeper into the tags that you would quickly brought, what I also like about this, and as you stated, the Snowflake and other databases have the ability to do tagging. And what's great about this, like you said, is this is is also business metadata, but at the same time can drive physical impact at the database perspective itself. For example, in this case, we've got Snowflake. Snowflake has the dynamic masking capabilities, and you can drive those maskings best off of these tags if you have the right, addition of Snowflake. But so you might say anything that's tagged as PI name might get like star, 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 or, that type of thing. And what I like about this, and when I've done some of the tagging with Snowflake, is, you're doing that as as code. Now you have, from my perspective, you have a graphical interface, right, for managing the tag. So now your stewards can tag the data. And when you do your deploy, like, so for example, if I was to do a excuse me, if I was going to bring this out and I said generate, the SQL, you'll see right here, right, that the create tag. So I've now created this tag, and part of my deploy out is going to then apply those tags at the database level. So now we've taken, I'm going to say, business governance metadata, and we're able to push that right down to the database itself. And for cases like Snowflake, have actual impact to your security, right, and how you're accessing data. So for me, this tags is, for me, is very, very big, and can play multiple roles that will benefit an organization. So are there other features, Heather, that you think that are new with SqlDBM that play a huge role in the data governance space?
There is. It's actually one that I'm the most excited about right now. Can you show them this schema database monitoring?
Sure. So for that, I'm going to get out of this specific project, and I'm actually going to go into the back to the dashboard. And what Heather was talking about was this database schema monitoring, which is really at the account level. So Heather, you want to give a little bit of your perspective on this?
Yeah. Before I do, I want to give some perspective. Keith and I have been working together for those 13 years that I've been in the industry. And along our journey, we found, when I was a data modeler, and especially the warehouse, that schema change was happening and I wasn't always pulled in. So we started creating manual processes so that I could catch up with it and make sure that data dictionaries and definitions were done, question the squads if they didn't pull me in, why things are happening, just so that I could manage my model. What this does is save hours of work, because you don't want me coding SQL. It was at least a day's worth of work. So if I wanted to run that frequently, I was out a lot of time. This is instantaneous to me. I mean, I just get to get an email at this moment, and if squad A did something without working with me, I can quickly email and be like, hey, we need to connect. I see that you released a table. I wasn't aware of it. Let's talk about how this works. Who's going to own this table? What are the the dictionaries? I noticed that you wrote it this way in the naming standard, but let's think about this in the future. So this, I think, is amazing. You can notify your data governance team, and it's, the trust but verify, right? We trust that our processes work, but every now and then something happens, there's a rush, there's a firefight, and this just allows for, I think, improved communication and trust in our work.
Yeah, what did we call that process we had? QDOG,
QDOG.
right? Right. Quality data architecture with guardrails. And I think, to your point, especially in nowadays, as many organizations, especially with data mesh, you're starting to go towards having a lot of folks having the ability to create structures. You might say, hey, this is our sales team, our finance team, and they're building data products and other things like that. And next thing you know, it starts to get away from you. And if you want to have one central model and governance right around everything that you're deploying, I think this is a great feature. right? So let's kind of get into that. Here, what we've done is we've created a schema monitor. So you can see here that I'm pointing this at our EDW development. So like I said a little while ago, we have a dev environment, a QA environment, and a production environment. All right, so we're saying, okay, we're going to point, go ahead.
Real quick about that, I wouldn't recommend your data governance team notified at a dev instance. That could be too much change, but for this example, we've just said dev, we've done dev. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a bit chatty if you're looking at an organization dev environment, but it might be something like if you have a pre-prod or a QA or something like that to get an understanding. So here we are pointing to the development database. And in that development database, I'm actually pointing it at 3 schemas. So our MART, the PSA, and the Vault. And we've got notifications going out to users. But here what you can do is you can set it up, and I'm not going to go into everything, but you can set it in as a schedule. So you can sit there and say how often and frequently do you want it to run. So if you know every organization is different, are you doing weekly releases, are you doing daily releases, maybe you have a certain set time, or maybe it's it's kind of chaotic and things are going all over the place and you want to run it in a variety of times. And this gives you the ability to set that schedule, create notifications and who you want to send those alerts to. So again, if you have a data governance team, maybe you have a data governance, and they might want to know of what's going on. And then obviously everything is being logged, right? So I'm going to go in just to kind of show you, we set this up at the beginning of the month on the 2nd. As you can see, when I first set it up, it started bringing 11 changes, and later I made some more changes and continued going on. And you can see I didn't really do too much between the 2nd and then yesterday. I went in and just in getting ready for this, played with it a bit more. So this really gives us that ability to see what's going on and when things occurred, right? So if I go and look at a compare, and I'll just see, well, what happened between the 2nd and the 22nd. It was a long period of time. What happened, as you can see on the 22nd, I added something in there. And then you can also see yesterday, I went and got rid of that, what I added yesterday, right? I deleted it. So, it kind of gives that. But, to Heather's point, trust but verify, let's actually take it and take it for a spin, right? So if I was to go right now and say, run now. So I'm going to tell this to run now, and it's going to go into our Snowflake database, and it's going to, so we can see it ran earlier today on the 23rd, but we're going to let it run. And what's great is we have all the historical of what's happened from each time. So it's able to do that compare.
I also like the colors for a quick visualization, right? Deleted, red, green, added. I think the update's yellow if I recall, but
right.
I think it's just quick understanding with a number on it too. So I think that's helpful.
Right. So we can see here, I ran it again for the 2nd time, and there was no changes because we didn't get any changes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my Snowflake database. If I can get to it, I've got this share your screen thing in my way. How do I move this? You guys probably don't see it, but it's in my way.
Can you just minimize?
Okay, wait, I'm going to give it to that. There we go. Now it's there. So we're in Snowflake, and I've created, I've got DDL here, and now I'm just going to go and execute this DDL. And I'm going to create a table. So we can see here, I just created this table called ddate. And now I'm going to go back into this the monitor, and now I'm going to run it again. And again, to kind of what we had talked about, this type of stuff could be going on, and we're completely unaware of it. Let it run for a little bit. So as you can see, we ran it the 3rd time, and here we have in our log, right, is that we have this change. And if I go and compare, we can see that the difference was that we've now added empty date table back into the play. And like to Heather's point, this was hours. To Heather's point, she spent a day. And how many we had? Like in that scenario, we had what, like 15 squads that were going
15
on,
development squads. Yeah.
And keeping track of all of that. I don't know how many Excel spreadsheets you had and how many queries you were running to kind of determine what the changes, but this is huge. And I think to your point, if you're doing data governance and you have a data governance program, as you're deploying physical structures into your database, if your business doesn't know what you're creating, what is it, what's it for, when can I use it, how good's the data, it's the adoption is going to kind of diminish down, and you don't want that. You want your business to have trust in what you're deploying, and what they're seeing is accurate and trustworthy. I think for the most part, those are, I don't think there's anything else you wanted to add, Heather, to what we were just talking about, if I missed any particular points.
At this point, I think we covered all the high level features.
Yeah, but I know we have Ajay with us from SqlDBM, who's has some more nuggets to share with us about some additional new features that are going to be coming out in the governance space. And I'm going to stop sharing. And Ajay, if you want to take it from there, we're excited to see what you have to show us on top of what we've already showed.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Heather. That was a lovely presentation and introduction about our data governance features that we are rolling out. Just my introduction for those who does not know me, this is Ajay. I'm a product strategy lead at SqlDBM. I've been working with SqlDBM from last 6 years and continuously building better and better features based on all the feedback that we receive from all our users. With saying that, I'm going to dive into some of the features of data governance only, which we have built, but they are not released. So I'm just going to show you what's upcoming very soon, maybe in a month or less in SqlDBM. These features are in the testing phase as of now, but they will be released soon. So, but I wanted to grab this opportunity to show you. So just bear with me a minute. I'm gonna share my screen here. All right. I hope you see my screen. So I'm on one of my internal systems, and that's where I'm gonna show you. So one of the features that we are releasing is called reports page. What it means is if you go to this context menu, you will be able to open the report page. And once you click on it, it's going to create the dynamic, the report for you from the current status of the project right away. So it's going to do that. It's working on it. Here it is. So what it means is the data documentation page that Keith was showing earlier. It's a similar thing, but in a more consumable fashion, more consumable view. So here you have a list of all your entities here, and then for each of them you have the full details here. Like if you have any kind of data governance flags like PII, PHI, anything that you are monitoring or you are documenting, it's going to be here. You have all your columns here, you have tags and flags here, any fields that you are tracking here, any related objects that are here, which are either your parent or child objects or your virtual connections, any kind of comments if you are doing any team communication feature, and then you can visualize your comments here. So that's one of the things that you can go on any of those objects and see all the details there. Plus, there is an amazing search available here at the top. So for example, if I want to search for, let's say, currency, and if I search that, it's going to go through my whole project and it's going to find out if this particular word or this string has been used in any of the descriptions, or is it part of the name of any object or any column name. So you can see all of the places where this particular string currency is being used. And then you can also filter it down if you want to see only the object name or the columns that are using currency or any description areas where currency is being used. So that's you can filter it down to any level that you want to. If you want to click on if you want to jump directly to the object, you can click from here and it will go to that object directly, and then you can see all the other data about that particular object. So that's one of the features that's coming soon, and one of the extensions of this reports page. This report is also going to be available in Confluence. So for all the folks who want to have it on an enterprise level, they want to share the information about their data model, data design, or all the objects. Currently, what we offer is on Confluence, you can have the ERDs, the diagrams, but not a report. So this report in a full searchable functionality will be available in Confluence as well. So that's one feature. Any comment so far, Keith or Heather, on this?
No, I think this is great because, as we talked about, we captured a lot of this metadata in the modeling exercises that we're doing. But now, how do you get it to the consumer, right, to the business, so that they can understand what's there? And I think this is great.
Yeah, thank you. And another thing that we are working on is basically, if I open the project, just bear with me a second. Okay, here, the project is already open. Just like data governance fields, which Heather was talking about and Keith was talking, there is going to be another item here available, another menu item. It's called data governance pages. So this is basically either your glossary or your big rich text documents, any kind of business rules that you want to put in. You can create all these documents within SqlDBM with a full shareability and consumability fashion. So this is it is full rich text here. Like, for example, if I'm going to edit, it will show you what you can do here. You can have different type of headers there. You can have bold, italics, any kind of rich documentation. You can also attach your data stewards here. For example, any technical stewards that you want to mention. So let's say if I want to just add here Ajay here, so I can add any number of people who are responsible for this document, and those are basically data stewards, which you can list them, all of them here. And let's say I put Edward here, or me. So that's how you can add all the data stewards. You can have you can attach to your related entities. For example, this is a security document where you want to attach some of the important tables or views which are participating, which are responsible to understand this properly. So you can add any related entities here, and that's very simple. For example, I'm just going to add a link here, and it will give me the list of all my objects available, and I can pick any of them and I can add that link of my particular entity right here. You can also add any kind of code snippets. Maybe these are Python scripts, maybe these are your formulas or your SQL code there. So you can add your code snippets there. There is also little more things. If you want to highlight certain things, you can attach any background colors to them, and then have that way as well. You can have these pages in a hierarchical format also. For example, if you have a security document and then you have a security for certain department, so you can add all those kind of pages as well in a hierarchical fashion. So this feature is also almost done. It's in the testing phase, which will be released very soon. I'm hoping in next 4 to 6 weeks it's going to be out, and that will make a little nice data governance suite for all the users who want to have the data governance within their projects along with the modeling. And these all features that we are building, they are totally based on the feedback that we are receiving from all of our clients and users. And I personally believe like data governance is so important, and it should be done right in the beginning, which is the right moment to do it. Because when you are designing, when you are modeling your conceptual logical designs, at that time it is so fresh in the mind, in the team who is working on it, to understand the right meanings, the aliases, the right business rules that you are implementing. And that's why it is the best time to start documenting right away.
All right.
I
Yes.
so Ajay, I have a few questions, as you're going through, and I have a microphone in front of me, so I'm gonna ask some questions to you.
Yeah.
Now, if the organizations want to get this into like a document, like maybe to store it into a repository or something like that, are you able to kind of export this out, say, to a PDF or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that?
Really good questions. And thanks for reminding because I totally forgot about it.
Mhm.
There is a PDF option. You would be able to export it as a PDF, which is in a printable fashion, or you can share it on your Confluence or share it with other people on any platform. You would also be able to attach some kind of documents. So basically, if there are more Word documents that you would want to attach with this, there would be attachments visible. Down the line, we also gonna have an option to refer any diagram or subject area which is part of your model so that it makes the document more understandable, more clear. But yes, to your point, Keith, yes, you can export it in the PDF, which you can share on your platforms.
Yeah, that was gonna be my other question. I think you just answered it, that eventually you get to the diagrams. But so is, for the most part, most of the metadata in the information that has been captured in the model linkable or accessible in the in pages?
Yes, yes. So just like here, I just added few related entities which are related to this document. So these are all the links that I have from my project. I can click on any of them if I want to jump directly there, and it's going to take me on the diagram where it is utilizing this particular object, and it will take me right to that, like here. Yeah.
Great. Now, what about for those who leverage the API, right, to maybe use this metadata to either interact with other technology solutions or so forth? Is the data, the governance data and or the pages type data available through the API?
Not the pages, but the data governance fields that we were talking about earlier. Those are definitely available through the APIs if you want to consume it, if you want to post it in or connect it with other solutions that you have. So you will be able to consume that information wherever you want. Down the line, we're going to have some post requests as well. If you want to push the information back into SqlDBM, just like what Heather was mentioning earlier, if you have a frequency or some other items that from third-party solutions you want to feed that information into SqlDBM, that would also be available in future.
Great. Good stuff.
Yeah. Saying that, I want to show you one of the also exciting features that we are working on. It's an extension of database schema monitoring that you were showing earlier. That if you want to be notified if any change happens to any of your systems, maybe your production systems, if somebody slips in some table which should not be there, or delete some column which could break a lot of reports, so you want to be notified. This is great because it's going to check on the frequency that you want to be notified. But another thing is the common practice in a lot of companies is also to document everything. Every change log must be documented for the auditing purpose, for also going back in history to understand what was changed at what point of time by which person. So we are working on this another thing. I'll just show you the screenshot here. So it's going to be available as well pretty soon, and it is basically your visual change log. So visual change log will actually provide you all the history of all the changes back in time which somebody has been doing it on the systems. For example, it is showing you right now like June, and these are all the dates, like 5th, which was Monday, there was some change, and on the 1st June there was some change. So these are all the changes that happened to your system. And below that will be the list of all the changes. You would be able to click on any of them to jump directly on that particular change, and you would be able to see the change, exactly what changed, if there was an update, if there was addition or deletion. So you can view the detail of the change back in history. You would be able to search anything here. Just like on the reports page, I was searching currency. For example, if I search currency or some name of the entity, let's say customer, so anything that has been changed related to customer, it could be a view, it could be a column name or table, you would be able to find all the changes related to that. So this is again one of the great feedbacks that we received from our clients, that they wanted to see the changelog history or changelog report. So that's also going to be upcoming very soon.
Yeah, and I think, I really like this because I know I've worked with clients and have been in scenarios where, for regulatory purposes, right, you need to have a history of when changes went in, right, and why. And oftentimes trying to go back and through time, if you're not really documenting what you're doing and when, it's hard to pull that out, right? So I think this is great, so yeah.
Even with all those spreadsheets I did, if I forgot to put it in there, I would have lost the history, and this is doing it for you. So I think this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about, I don't know if you could do this now, but being able to add maybe comments or release notes or something to go along with just that, like if you're looking right there at customer and if you wanted to be a descriptive or something like that, is that something that can be done, or is that
This will be coming up as well, because most of the times that when you see a change, right, you want to share with your team members, or you want to ask about that change to someone in your team. So there will be more integrations on this page where you would want to either take a screenshot or a snapshot and share it over Slack, or start discussing or start commenting about it, like why we push this column, or why it was not following the regular convention that we have, or whatever you want to say. So this, it would allow you to discuss things or to comment on any change that you would want to.
good stuff?
Yeah, just one. Yeah, this, like I said, like the practice of making these reports is already in a lot of companies, but it is in a more on a human way, like somebody has to do it. This is automated, which makes sure there are no human errors. There is a source of truth which is coming from the database, no one else. So it has to be true. So there are a lot of benefits of using it in that fashion.
Yeah, in one scenario, I didn't bring it up when I was doing my demonstration, but as you're bringing this up, it kind of reminded me, a lot of organizations are using, automation solutions. And I know, for example, like if you're doing Data Vault, there'll be some solutions that generate, and many of those, right, there's no person who's generating the physical tables and schemas, and those will all get created without any documentation. And with combining the monitoring, right, the database schema monitoring, right, you can then bring those changes into, say, SqlDBM, have that log of when those changes came into play, right? So now even stuff that is being done outside of SqlDBM, right, you could leverage these features, with these automation tools in partnership and combination to get, that kind of, I like calling it the circle of life or whatever, right? In terms of everything that's going on with your data. So you can have your change log, you can understand what's being done, and even if it's with solutions that are outside of SqlDBM.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, especially with this modern data practices where we create those data pipelines with the modern solutions. For example, DBT or similar tools out there which design your pipelines, and they push the code, or they push the entities automatically in a programmatic fashion, which are not through human. So you want to have some system to keep an eye on what was changed, what is the history of all the changes, which process, which tool is pushing what changes, so that you can keep an eye or track those. Yeah. All right. With that, I want to leave some time for any questions, answers, and any other comments.
Yeah, we have a ton of questions in the chat, so let's get right to those. Ajay, do you want to choose the first one?
I think we have subject matter experts here, Heather and Keith. I would want them to take that.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going through. Do we have anyone, since if somebody wants to read it off or whatever? Let's see. In the QA.
Yeah, I'm looking them over real quick.
The chat has been blowing up a little bit. We love to see.
So I do see one here. I was like from Richard, right? If you want to bulk update a bunch of fields tags and flags via import? I can say definitively yes, because I know the tags that I just did in the demo, I did with the import function, because I didn't want to go into each table, to each column, go down to the properties, go all the way down to the bottom and apply the tag, right? So I just I did an export, I put in my tags, and then I imported it, and I was done in like 2 minutes. So yes, that feature I know.
There is actually one more way, just to add on to that. You can multi-select those entities in the diagram, and you can bulk once you multi-select, there is a property about flags. You can apply the flag at the same time in SqlDBM or using Excel, like Keith mentioned.
Yeah. Somebody actually asked here, how does Eon Collective use SqlDBM? So as I said earlier, we kind of use it in 2 ways. One, with clients, we might have clients that have the technology and the solution internally and helping them use it. But internally, we use it, one, to play around with SqlDBM because we are partners. But the others is, we do build mocks and prototypes and things internally. So as we try to understand how other technologies use together and so forth. So we use it in a variety of ways internally. Sometimes it's just for, I do everything with models, even if I'm doing something for myself. So we will use it from a variety of fashions, but it is our internal data modeling tool that we use. And I use it a lot. We've used it on like pre-sales. So oftentimes you're going into a client and I need to show them how to do modeling. I'll just, I'll use SqlDBM as my modeling tool, and they'll get visibility to that. What is your recommendation for workflow when using SqlDBM with Snowflake environment? We migrated from SAP earlier. I know the workflow that we've done is we, as we kind of showed in the environment we have, is that we will deploy any DDL that we create in, say, SqlDBM into source control, right? So every organization might be doing different types of CI/CD pipelines, in a variety of ways. For Snowflake, depending on who your public cloud provider is and which tools you have. So from our perspective, it's, generate the DDL, deploy it into your pipeline, and then up through your dev, test, QA, prod, however, which environments you have. That's how we recommend it. But the pipeline is that we've seen a variety of different pipelines with different companies based on their technologies. What other, Sarah, if you see, or anybody, what are other questions?
Yeah, I've seen this 3 times now. Is Data Vault worth the effort? I think this is a long answer.
Yeah, I can, that is a polarizing question. You'll have people that are, I'll speak for myself. I am a hardcore Data Vault believer, just because I probably spent a majority of my years doing star schema only. And I ran into problems when we started going to, I used to have, when I first started doing data warehousing, I had one source, we refreshed it once a month, and we thought that was, great. Now we're doing, morning organizations could have hundreds of sources doing multiple releases, and traditional star schema made it difficult to do. I'm a huge believer in it, but there are some that don't, and I found it to be successful. The key is, if you try to do Data Vault without following Data Vault the way it's supposed to be done, then you will have, and that's usually where I've seen things that have gone bad, is not following Data Vault to its standards. But like you said, we could spend a whole nother hour just talking about pros and cons of Data Vault versus simple star. And when it comes to Data Vault versus star schema, it's not one or the other. Star schemas are still part of Data Vault. It's just from my perspective, it enhances its capabilities. But like I said, conversation for another day.
Agreed.
Any other?
Yeah.
I did see somebody ask, I think I saw somewhere in here, right? Yeah, can SqlDBM work with data governance software programs like Calibra? Heather for sure has a lot more. She works a lot with Calibra, especially. And so what is great about SqlDBM having an API, and Calibra has APIs, and one of the things we do when I was talking about Eon Collective and we talk about our accelerated services is we'll build we've built interfaces, and I think a lot of organizations do that, is you can take the API. So if that metadata is in SqlDBM, right, you can build APIs and services to get that stuff, and we've done that with bringing stuff into a Calibra, or even if you're using an Elation or other tools. And that's, I think, what's one of the things great about SqlDBM having, and I asked that question earlier about having stuff via the API, right? So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. There's so many great questions. I feel like this happens every time where we need another session just for all the amazing questions. Avinash is asking if you can give a high-level comparison to traditional tools compared to SqlDBM, which they're hoping will help designers to see the differences and strengths.
To which different tools, like what, like other
Traditional data modeling tools. So like Irwin,
Yeah. It's a great question. I know, Heather, how many years did you work with Irwin specifically, right?
10,
10
at least
years.
10. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also
Irwin.
information data architect by IBM. Mhm.
Yeah. So, there's a variety. I would say, they all have, like, again, we could spend an hour working on this, and
I know.
they all have their pros and cons. Irwin's been around a long time. I would say, when we talk at Eon and then using it in projects, one of the biggest things that we like about SqlDBM is that we're up and running because with the URL, I don't have to install anything, and I can use one environment, my one SqlDBM account, and I can be working with 3 different clients, right? Is that I can, it's not physically on my machine, right? It's not physically on a server, and we will have different SqlDBM logins, right? For client 1, client 2, client 3, and even for ourselves. So I never have to get out of the browser. I literally log out, log in, log out, log in. So for us, the fact that it's cloud-based, and we can collaborate, I kind of showed that at the beginning, Heather and I, how many years did we never be able to, you would have separate models going on with Irwin and trying to, so they're all different. But that's
The
what.
one thing I like is SqlDBM seems to do releases a lot more frequently. With Irwin, if we needed an upgrade, it could take a year for a release cycle. The last time I used it, so it's a little out of date. I just like how frequently SqlDBM is updating their releases and growing their product to support their clients.
I like that answer. Okay. Let's see here. And Ajay and Anna are answering some questions.
I can see that. A lot of interaction going on.
Yet. Okay. Let's see. Okay, here's a question for Keith and or Ajay. We have a lot of JSON in our data vault satellites. Will SqlDBM be fine with those in terms of data dictionary and pretty much all other functions?
Yeah. With the data governance, if you want to add any JSON data to any of the fields, you can certainly store that. It's basically any kind of data if you want to store there. Yes, you can.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And I do know, just kind of add on, if I'm interpreting the question a certain way, I know a lot of people will use JSON in, say, blob storage or an S3 bucket, and they'll do an external table with Snowflake on top of that. And what I've done in the past is then you can auto generate like a view of that schema structure. It's another way that you can then get that structure of that JSON file, or even if it's a Parquet or work file or something like that, and get that into a columnar type of traditional table structure. So there's a variety of ways that I've done it so that you can make it look like a table and see it. Yeah.
Awesome. We have time for one more question and then we'll wrap things up. Ed Pock is asking, does the custom data also carry forward to a physicalized data model?
Well, I know the comments go in, and we did talk about tags. So tags is a physical concept, but the other pieces of metadata, like when we created the owner. Because we just said as a custom metadata column, it wouldn't go into the DDL. A lot of databases don't really have that ability to add metadata to their table structures. But like, for example, Snowflake has tagging. We could have, in the example Heather had us build, where we created a new column for owner, we literally could have created a tag called owner, and then all the sales and everything like that. And then that would have happened is we would have, inside of Snowflake, we'd have had that metadata, right? So I think it's dependent on each database in terms of what physical aspects you can add to the DDL, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you all for answering these questions. We had a ton of them. If there's any that we didn't get to, we will do our best to address those on our LinkedIn page. So make sure you're following SqlDBM on LinkedIn. It's been a pleasure, guys. This was fantastic. Thank you for showing us around the data governance tool. I personally really enjoyed it. I hope everybody else did too. So have a fantastic rest of your day, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.